And I'm speaking super quick on EMF. So first, I just want to tell you, anything I got, I did not pull off Google. I don't believe in Google. I used to be a researcher. I go straight to PubMed. So anything I bring to you, I promise, is high science, and it's pretty hard for them to fight. In different meetings, they've tried to go against me, and they haven't won. The other thing I got my information from is directly from their appendix. So FF is their appendix on their Article 7, where they list everything that they think is going to happen in regards to EMF. So that's where it's coming from. So the first thing that you'll notice in their appendix is they say in 2007, the IARC and the WHO say that EMF is not harmful to humans. And you know what? They're not lying. They did say that in 2007. The thing that they forgot to put in their Article 7 is that in 2011, they reclassified that statement, and they actually say that it is possibly carcinogenic to humans, a class 2B. So that's nowhere in their appendix, which is sus. The other thing they always say is EMF is everywhere. There's 0.2 to 3 milligus per house. That's how they measure EMF. They measure it by milligus, right? So 0.2 to 3 milligus in every house. This cable lands at Riverside Beach, depending on the different configurations, anywhere from 25 milligus to 80 milligus. That's at Riverside Beach. At the substation in Island Park, it's anywhere from 50 to 90 milligus. One thing I want to point out is that the research documents that I'm going to show you indicate that even a little bit of an increase in EMF in a household will change your health outcome. So the first one that's irrefutable is the link between childhood leukemia and also fetal impact. So those are the two studies. There's 8 billion I could show you, but I wanted to get you the best of the best. So the first one, and also, I also want to advise you, do your own research. You don't have to believe me. Don't believe anybody. But if you're researching, this is what I would tell you to do. Get the most recent study you can find. Narrow your search. Pick one thing. I picked childhood leukemia first and just looked at that. Make sure your source is pristine. Don't go to Google. Go right to PubMed, where medical journals are all, in there. Really important is check for sponsors, right? Who sponsored the trial? If the trial is sponsored by Pfizer, Equinor, the ICNIRP, that's not what you want. You want unsponsored studies. And then even contact the author, which I've done. So in the childhood leukemia meta-analysis, this was a really big one. It came out it printed at one point in March 2022. So that's super recent. The exposure to magnetic fields in childhood leukemia, it was a review and a meta-analysis going back as far as 1970s. They reviewed every study, the studies that said it did, the studies that said it didn't. They took 36,000 children that were diagnosed with childhood leukemia. And in the end, in this 42-page meta-analysis, they found a statistically significant association between exposure to ELF, extremely low frequency EMF, and childhood leukemia. They also found that there was a dose response. It showed that children exposed to as little as 0.2 Tesla, which would be 2 milligus, had a 1.2% times higher odds of having childhood leukemia. Altogether, without that 0.4, with just altogether radiation up from 1.2 to 2.3, there's a twofold increase in childhood leukemia. So that was that study. So why is this picture up here? Because that's Riverside Beach. And so who goes to Riverside Beach in the summer? Well, anybody who wants to go to a surf camp or hang out. Who brings their first child to Riverside Beach? The woman who's on her way to having her second child. So this is, and I want to also say, I'm not even on the route. The reason I'm so obsessed with this topic is because I care that much about humans. I think that this is a crime to pull this cable through a town, a real crime. So the next thing I looked at, because I was looking at EMF and leukemia, and I'm like, why children? Why is it so clear with children? And I'm like, oh, their cells aren't developed. Their DNA can be easily cleaved. So then I thought, well, who else is not developed yet? And that's obviously the fetuses. So there was another meta-analysis with a lot of studies, and it pulled out 6 studies, which is which was really interesting because these studies were in India. Why is that interesting? Because they didn't include rich people EMF with cell phones, and these were just power line based EMF exposures. And what they found was with people who had residences near high voltage power lines with EMFs of more than 1 milligauss, they saw an impact on fetal development. They also looked at they saw a 3.95 times significant increase in placental apoptosis. So obviously a pregnant woman can't continue to grow that baby in a womb if there's a placental apoptosis. Apoptosis is cell death. They found a lot of other things, 5-fold increase in central nervous system disorders, spina bifida, clubfoot. They found a lot of different things within this meta-analysis when they pooled it all together. And it's a large number. They found that women who had increased exposure to 4 milligauss or higher their children were 14 times more likely to develop all cancers over 4 years. The result of the study showed the residence period of time was more than 4 years before and after birth. So it was after birth, so the young child as their cells are developing, and also risk of leukemia and brain tumors, because they were also looking at cell phone data in this large meta-analysis. So there's just such a strong link. So the big thing to know about this study is the authors weren't like, stop it, everybody turn off the lights, this is ridiculous. But what they did say is the World Health Organization cannot continue with their 2011 guidelines. That if they don't change these guidelines, that there are, even the littlest bit of enhancement of exposure to EMF could lead to unacceptable health consequences for future generations. They state it's a significant environmental danger for pregnant women. So that's pretty much my stuff. This was just, if you have questions, that's my own EMF reader at home. And yes, they're going to tell you, look, that's red. You put it up next to your cell phone charger, it's red. And yes, it's cumulative. Do I avoid my cell phone? No, I'll be on it in 2 seconds. But do I unplug things? Sure. I just try to lower my own in-house EMF exposure. I put my phone on speaker. There's little things you can do. I don't get crazy. I'm also 53. I'm not having a baby. I don't have young kids. But any questions? You can ask me. No, that's it. Thanks. All right, thanks. Okay.
You gonna continue on?
Did somebody else want to speak?